Monster movies have been around since the silent era. They are a staple of the horror genre. Many of these films fail to become box office hits, but sometimes they develop a cult following. An example of this would be 1990's Tremors. Despite only making 16 million at the box office, this film would go on to spawn 5 additional movies and a TV series. Tremors was written and produced by Brent Maddock and S.S. Wilson. This was not the first time these two had worked together. They had collaborated on several films prior to this, most famously the 1986 hit Short Circuit, a science fiction comedy about a military robot that gets struck by lightning and gains human like intelligence, including the ability to feel emotion.
Volume 2, no problem.
More input, Stephanie. More.
There isn't any more. You've read everything in the house.
Welcome to America.
They also wrote the script to the film Batteries Not Included, which was about miniature spaceships that helped save an apartment complex from being demolished by greedy developers. Tremors would be a very different film from anything that they had ever done before. This wouldn't be a science fiction film about robots or aliens. This would be a horror film about giant man-eating worms called graboids. And the protagonists wouldn't be scientists or elderly couples. They would be rednecks with pickup trucks and lots of guns. Maddock and Wilson first came up with the idea of Tremors almost a decade earlier when they were hired by the US military to make educational films. They ended up at a military base in the desert, and while going for a walk one weekend, they climbed up on top of a giant boulder and wondered what it would be like if something trapped them on this rock. Thus, the basic plot of Tremors was born.
On the weekends, I would go off and wander around out on the ranges when they weren't shooting at them, and I was climbing rocks one day, and I was sitting up on a rock, and I made a note and scrap of paper. What if there was something under the ground and I couldn't get off this rock?
After Short Circuit became such a smash hit, Maddock and Wilson got a lot of attention and started pitching Tremors to studios.
And that note just sat in a file folder then for a number of years. And later, Brent and I sold Short Circuit, and our agent, Nancy Roberts, sat us down and said, okay, now, get all those old ideas out of your file folders. And we got a number of them out, and she picked about 3 of them to really pursue and develop, and one of them was what we then started calling Land Sharks.
Yes, the original title was Land Sharks, but it had to be changed because Saturday Night Live was doing a skit called Land Sharks at the same time.
What is it? Land shark. Cleverest species of them all. Oh my God.
When the film entered production, the title of the script was called Beneath Perfection, before finally being changed to Tremors. The film would be directed by Ron Underwood, who also helped work on the story and script. Underwood had previously worked on documentaries for National Geographic and was very knowledgeable about nature and animals, and even had studied anthropology in college. He helped figure out what the graboid should look like and how it should move around and act. At that time, Underwood was most known for directing the TV adaptation of Beverly Cleary's The Mouse and the Motorcycle. He also directed the sequel Runaway Ralph, which was nominated for a Daytime Emmy. Tremors would be very different from anything that Underwood had directed up to that point. Despite having a budget of only around 6 to 7 million, the film had an incredible cast. The main characters, Val and Earl, would be portrayed by Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward.
I thought this was a party! Let's dance!
Bacon had become a huge star thanks to Footloose, but the success of the film led to him being typecast. In the late 80s and early 90s, he was looking to appear in films that were different from those that he had been in the past, and a monster movie was just the thing he was looking for.
To be brutally honest, I was running out of money. After Footloose came out, I had a series of leading roles that just all bombed. You know, my career was really like close to ending. I read the script, and I said, you know, I can have fun with the part.
Ward got into movie business back in the 70s while he was temporarily living in Rome. He got a job dubbing Italian movies into English and also worked part-time as a mime. His first major role was as a supporting actor in 1979's Escape from Alcatraz. He also appeared as a supporting actor in The Right Stuff and starred in 1985's Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins. That film was supposed to be the start of a huge franchise and was heavily promoted but was unsuccessful. You could say that both Bacon and Ward were in a career slump, but they weren't the only ones. From 1982 to 1989, Family Ties was one of the most watched shows on television. It launched the career of Michael J. Fox and introduced us to Michael Gross. Gross would sign on to play survivalist Burt Gummer, the only actor to appear in every Tremors film and every episode of the television series.
You will have long blonde hair, big green eyes, world-class breasts, ass that won't quit, and legs that go all the way up.
For the female lead, producers chose Finn Carter. Carter was the daughter of Harding Carter III, who worked for the State Department under the Carter administration. He was a major figure during the Iranian hostage crisis. At the time Tremors was filming, Carter was in a relationship with Steven Weber, who would go on to star in the hit TV series Wings. Carter only appeared in a handful of movies, and she is mostly remembered for her role in this one. The film would also feature Victor Wong, who was best known for his roles in Big Trouble in Little China and The Last Emperor, which had just won the Oscar for Best Picture a few years ago. Wong would also go on to star in the Three Ninjas trilogy, and he was the one who gave the Graboids their name.
Graboid! That's it, Graboid! Jesus, Walter. We're gonna be sorry you don't give it a name.
Ariana Richards appeared in the film as Mindy. She would go on to have a supporting role in Jurassic Park a few years later. But perhaps the biggest casting surprise was country music sensation Reba McEntire. Even to this day, people are still shocked to discover that she's in this movie. This was actually her first film, her film debut, and although her music career was still on the rise, Reba had already won a Grammy for her song Who's Ever in New England. In the film, Val and Earl are handymen in the town of Perfection, Nevada, which only has a population of 14 people. Tired of the day-to-day life in the town and believing they are destined for bigger things, the two decide to move on, but they pick the wrong day to leave. Val and Earl soon discover a man who has been chased up an electric tower who was so scared of coming down he stayed up there until he starved to death. They also find a severed head and a station wagon that's been buried underground. At first they think it's the work of a madman, but soon discover the existence of giant subterranean man-eating worms. These graboids can't see, but have incredible hearing and hunt by sound. Like many horror films, the monster is slowly revealed, but Tremors does this in a unique way. In the beginning, you never see the monster at all you see is a giant snake, and you think that's the monster, but it isn't until the movie is half over that you discover the giant snake was actually just the monster's tongue, and it's actually a 30-foot worm. When Jaws came out, the film was praised for showing the attacks from the point of view of the shark. Critics said it made the film seem more terrifying. The victims can see their attacker, but the audience can't. I would argue that what really makes Tremors an amazing movie was the decision to have the graboids be underground. By doing so, not only does it make the movie more suspenseful by not allowing the audience to see the monster, but it also makes the film more interesting because not even the victim knows what the monster really looks like. In this way, Tremors is similar to the film Predator. Both films feature a creature that can't be seen. The main difference is the characters in Tremors are much more relatable. Predator featured a team of military commandos, but Tremors focused on everyday people. There was a small businessman, an annoying teenager, a single mom, an outdoorsman, and two ordinary handymen. When I was a child, I would play a game called The Floor is Lava, where I would try to get around my house and sometimes my backyard without touching the ground. The second half of Tremors is basically the ultimate game of Floor is Lava. The group eventually gets stranded on a rock, just like Maddock and Wilson originally envisioned. With hope running out, they come up with a great idea.
Come on, baby. Take it. Take the bait.
Yeah, all right.
At the end of the film, Kevin Bacon's character tricks the last graboid into falling off of a cliff.
Can you fly, you sucker? Can you fly?
When the film was released, it was originally given an R rating because of language. The film was re-edited and over 20 swear words were removed in order to give it a PG-13 rating. When the film was released, it didn't make anywhere near the money that its producers hoped, but it was a huge success on home video. I think one of the reasons why it was so successful in the video rental market was the PG-13 rating. I think a lot of parents saw it as a family-friendly horror film and rented it for a movie night. Although the film has some intense moments, I wouldn't say that it's a very scary film. Some people even label it as a horror comedy. The film never really gets into the history of the graboids. The writers proposed several possibilities as to their origin, but ultimately chose to let it remain a mystery.
There was a debate about that.
There was a big debate about it early in the process. First of all, we didn't care. And since I'm the one who comes out of science fiction films, I was saying there's only 4 places they can come from. They're either radioactive, or they're a biological experiment, or they're from outer space, or they've always been there. This is the only options you have. So I didn't want to say it. And I said, in fact, I'll go one better. Let's just say all of them.
Doesn't matter where they come from.
Many people theorized that the graboids were the result of radioactive mutation, since that was how most monsters in classic films were created, like Godzilla. But in the sequels, it would be revealed that the graboids have been around for billions of years. Because of the success of Tremors, there were 5 sequels and a prequel and TV series. Although cheesy, I always liked the TV show. It features Monster of the Week style episodes and goes into a lot more detail about the history of the town of Perfection.
And it likes all of them raw.
That's perfection.
Perfection, Nevada. Small town, big problem. Tremors, the series, coming in 2003.
I would also argue that the first sequel, Tremors 2 Aftershocks, is actually just as good as the original. Upon release, Tremors received mixed to good reviews from critics. On At the Movies with Siskel and Ebert, the two disagreed on how good Tremors actually was, but most critics today have a favorable opinion of it. A year later, Ron Underwood would direct City Slickers, which would be his most critically acclaimed film, and it led to an Oscar for legendary actor Jack Palance. Underwood would then reunite with writers Wilson and Maddock for the film Heart and Souls, about a businessman who helps a group of angels communicate with their loved ones. The three would never work together again until the 2003 Tremors series was released on the Sci-Fi Channel. Maddock and Wilson would work on a few Tremors sequels, and they also wrote the script to the 1990 film The Wild Wild West, which was universally panned by critics. Over the years, more and more people have discovered Tremors, and if you're ever in Lone Pine, California, which is where Tremors and several other famous movies have been made, there's a museum of Western film which has an entire exhibit dedicated to Tremors. So what do you think of the movie Tremors? Do you think any of the sequels are good? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
Let's play.